Good morning. Welcome to the seminar on the standards, communication, and the use of communication for better health and better living. This is very important for the industry standards as well as the emissions which are occurring from the earth. And more often, people are ignorant about emissions from the earth because we live on earth and we are not supposed to blame the place where we are living on, and we live on the most top part of the soil where all the contamination is very clear to us, but we do not know what happens to the next layer of the soil where this particular mixture, the contaminants or the pollutants mixture, become a compound due to very long exposure to radiation, sun's heat, or reactions with other chemicals, reactions with water, or reaction with salt, or reaction with some pollutants. We are not aware of such contamination. And it is always good not to worry about all these contaminants for better living in terms of mental health, but it is going to affect our physical health. One simple example is the non-usage of electronic systems. We are not using electronic systems to detect the contamination, whether it is FDA, Federal and Drug Administration. Electronic systems are less utilized, and even for soil analysis, electronic systems are not utilized for detecting contaminants. This puts a severe burden on chemical analysis. We always think that chemical analysis is going to be trustworthy in proving that there is a contaminant in the soil, and this is the reason for failure of such systems, because we need a lot of mass communication between countries, between places of similar such toxicity or similar hazard to environment, and we cannot avoid the hazards to environment because people are the creators of hazards to environment. By nature, the hazards to environment are solved by nature itself. For example, ocean, the hazards to environment is solved by production of salt naturally, and in the mountainous regions, hazards to environment is um, solved by grasses. The grasses grown in the mountains absorb these hazards, and then they get converted, and they also get burned when there is a fire, and the hazardous environment is naturally decomposed and evaded by natural places. But we are not living in natural places, we are not living in natural regions, we are living in a place where the second layer of the soil is going to affect us, not the first layer of the soil where we are going to live in. Hence, the use of electronic systems combined with communication technologies to interact with experts, to interact with known persons, chemists, druggists, electronically advanced people, and people who use mass spectrometry for detecting chemical composition, and people who are handling a lot of patients um, contaminated with some toxins in blood, and doctors who are dealing with some tests in examining toxicity of blood, not due to viruses but due to some contaminants and pollutants, are very important for discussion. This is not just particular to government or institutions which are governing bodies, or even the world class institutions like WHO, World Health Organization, but it is very important for the individual, because individual is affected more than a group of persons. Individual is at a stake because individual cannot manage his expenses. Whatever income he earns, he cannot manage his expense unless and until he is very healthy and fit enough to do a job, any job. So this puts a burden on the individual life which is at stake. Hence, the individual has to be given the prior knowledge by means of electronic media, by means of electronic test systems, and by means of some detector systems. The individual has to go through a proper detector systems as to check his own health before going into some factory or industry work, or before going into some labor job of handling hazardous substances. When we classify hazardous substances, there are enormous hazardous substances. Uh, there is an encyclopedia of hazardous substances in the world. More than the lectures, more than the analysis, more than the research done by many researchers in the world, the encyclopedia is enough for giving hazardous substances, but that is not enough to reach the individual. So we want to make use of many technologies which are unaware of these hazards. Certain technologies like satellite communication can see mass disasters from the sky above earth, but they also are ignorant in detecting minute hazards which may affect the people. Hence, we need a lot of biomarkers, biosensors, which are going to gather this information from hazardous areas. If you can take an example of South India, where I live in, there are a lot many places where the toxicity of the soil is very high. Even though the South India is a cradle of fruit production, it is a cradle of cereal production, it is a cradle for spices and condiments, it is a cradle for medicinal herbs. And the medicinal herbs produced from South India are very effective in curing many ailments like arthritis and other sexual ailments also. So we are aware of STD, sexually transmitted diseases, which are common, where people are huge, people are in masses. People need not involve in sex, but the sexually transmitted diseases mean that the disease may spread through their secretions, through the air they breathe, etc. Not just to physical contact, but close contact, even from the air. So where this is prominent, the extra challenge is through the toxicity of the second layer of the soil. The extra challenge has to be addressed by means of electronic systems, and there are so many countries which are very advanced in analysis and research of the toxicity, but analysis and research of toxicity of a region in a country is confined to that particular region only. It can be taken as a template, but it cannot be taken as a Bible or a Bhagavad Gita, so that it can be followed by everyone. So the particular research confined to a particular region is apt only for that region and only for the people exposed to such a particular environment. Hence, I want to showcase a particular toxicity that affects the region in the South India, that is called as the mercury toxicity. Mercury is found in abundance in South India. The soil layer, second layer of the soil, is contaminated with the mercury. As a whole, I don't see mercury as a huge contaminant, even though it is listed as a contaminant in the encyclopedia of contaminants. It is said that mercury is the most toxic substance which is going to affect human body, which is not so. We find applications of mercury in many solar energy converters. We find application of mercury in thermometers for detecting temperature changes. We find application of mercury in some atomic clocks as well. When you say atomic clocks, I am not speaking with the biggest atomic clock of world wonder. Small clocks which are termed as atomic clocks, which are maintaining time accurately, and which can be adjusted wireless. The atomic clock, minute and hours, can be adjusted wireless by the presence of mercury in its composition in some area of the semiconductor component. This is possible with electronics, and many electronic components have got affinity towards mercury. Similarly, our blood, human blood, has got an affinity to absorb mercury. Mercury is contaminant only when it is a compound called as hydrogen sulfide or hydrogen cyanide. When it comes into contact with mercury, it becomes mercury sulfide, mercury cyanide, and so on. So when it becomes a compound, it is a contaminant. But how it is being tracked by wireless systems, electronic systems, the electronic media, etc., is a big achievement. And the achievement is not in the highest level, it is in the lowest level, because we need more sensors, more biomarkers for doing that particular experiment, and it is not the experiment that can be done by an individual. As an individual, I can show you a particular extract from garlic. Garlic is a plant. It is often seen growing in some marshlands and some areas where contaminants are present. Even mercury is present in such an area. Garlic will grow. And this is an extract from garlic which is going to separate the mercury. It is going to isolate the mercury from a mercury compound. But in other words, we can always say that garlic is a medicine that is going to solve the problems of isolating mercury within the human body, which is not so. The amount of garlic which is going into the human body is going to decide that particular process. So one cannot eat garlic like we consume our foods, cereals, biscuits. We cannot eat garlic to that quantity to isolate mercury from the human body. That's why the human beings who are to be in the color of orange or apple are getting darker in skin. If you see the skin becomes darker over the years due to exposure to certain compounds of mercury. The darkness of the skin is not genetic. It is not purely genetic. If a person goes and lives in Russia, he may turn white. And if a person comes and lives in hot, humid place, he may turn darker, because skin wants to protect the body by suiting itself to temperature changes. But more than this protection the skin gives, the mercury decides the color of the skin, the immediate change of the skin, and it also decides the eye. The eye is very bright now, but if it is exposed to mercury, what happens? The eye, the scleral layer of the eye may desiccate, and it may come out as particles. It may radiate. In other words, we can say that there is a radiating eye due to the exposure of mercury. So mercury is called as a toxic substance because of these changes, which are very strange to the human body. Even other metal can cause the same change to the human body, but human being is not aware. Because mercury is found abundant, this particular change in the human body is made aware to the human being by mercury, the presence of mercury. So we can both appreciate and also criticize the presence of mercury in contaminated soil. Both are possible, but why this is being spoken of at length, and now I am going to illustrate some example how two communication technologies, namely the technologies used in laboratory, technologies used in mass media communication, are being related to address this particular problem. And this is at the lowest level. We have not reached the highest level still because of the challenges of employment, challenges of the hard labor, which ignores this particular problem of physical and mental health. Because over the years the eyes may get spoiled, and a person can lose his vision due to the exposure of mercury. And this is seen when the eyes are get eyes are getting spoiled, it may also cause a liver damage, because the liver and eye coordination is very important for the human being. We only have one liver, we don't have two livers, and but we have two eyes which are going to control our immune system. Our immune system is dependent on eye, but this fact is not leaked out by persons, because uh, people have fear. When we disclose some vital information, we think that someone may damage the eye, someone may cause eye problems and degrade the immune system. This is a simple fear, which is not so. That someone may not be an individual, it may be a compound of mercury. This is what people have to understand, and I have understood this particular toxicity uh, due to a few exposure, not full exposure. I want to illustrate a particular part 1 of the system or the technology, which is going to be clubbed with part 2 of the technology, so that this particular toxicity is being monitored wirelessly and with the help of wired systems, chemical systems, etc. The purpose is to notify the person who is exposed to hazardous environment of emissions. The purpose is not to solve the problem. If we have to solve the problem, we have to isolate ourselves from working in such an industrial environment. That is the best solution. If we think that something is hazardous, we have to avoid it. That is the best solution, but this solution cannot be provided by everyone because of employment, poverty, and the lack of health amenities within a certain region pertaining to the locality of the environment, closer to mountains, closer to seas, closer to landmass, closer to rivers, closer to corals, etc., where abundance of resources and raw materials are being utilized to make finished products. Hence, part 1 of the system contains the transmit and receive module. Transmit and receive module is a transceiver module which may operate in many frequencies, but microwave frequencies is admissible for such systems due to many advantages. The microwave frequencies are not going to absorb these particular compounds. One thing. Second thing is microwave has got a heat producing effect. It has also got a evading effect of chemicals. It has also got a evading effect of bacteria, viruses, etc. Hence we can say that scientifically microwave systems are healthier, but they may cause burns. They may cause burns when exposed to human body, but these systems are used in good communication and mobile devices which we are using in day-to-day life in minimal quantities. So we do not know the effect of microwave devices, but they have got a good nature as well as bad nature, but we want to exploit the good nature of the microwave communication. Microwave transceivers we have, then we have the modem, which is called as a burst modem. Burst modem is different from other modem. The modulator demodulator is going to convert a frequency band. It is going to up modulate or down modulate, and then it is going to decode a particular frequency band, but the burst modem is not going to do so. Burst modem is for wireless transceivers. It is going to take the particular frequency band, it is going to mix it with a wider frequency band, it is going to burst the data into air medium, or it may even be a water medium in submarines and etc. They are using the burst water medium, and they are going to, from the burst, they are going to detect the low frequency. From the low frequency, they are going to decipher the data. This is possible in water medium, but it is not possible everywhere. For this, we need a very good technology of burst modem technology. So The other thing is the post processing systems have not got that much capability to process such a um, bus modem data. We can only see jammers and other devices which are called as disturbance devices in technology, but we haven't seen the post processing adapters which are going to decipher the data from the bus medium. Hence, we have a challenge for this particular communication. Hence, we have what is called as a communication controller, which is going to link to satellite system. The satellite is for rating the environment hazard, environment data, climate change, and it is going to rate the land mass, geography, etc. It is going to detect photo data and radiation data, temperature data, etc. So the satellite is best utilized for these purposes because any change in the existing data, it is going to affect the people and it is going to affect the individual. Even though we can say people or group of people, it is going to affect the individual. So to protect this particular link is being established, and it is not established to the highest level still. We are in 2018, still it is not established in the highest level, it is established in lowest level. But how it is being, or it is going to advance, this is going to be our seminar now. Now we have the communications controller which is going to be linked to this satellite. Before that we have the bus modem, then we have the transceivers and the antennas. These are made from the copper, aluminium, nickel and mercury. We will be very shocked to see that again the mercury finds its place even in these particular devices because it is unavailable. The temperature changes that have to be indicated to such system involves the mercury, which is going to be a component of the system. So this particular system is going to be linked to a data transmit server. The data transmit server collects the data of potential hazard to human health. If you look at the potential hazard to human health, they are immense. But this mercury hazard is widely seen due to the discoloration and decoloration and eye degradation issues in the human world. Hence, we can see that mercury in the biological and environmental samples is detected by a process called as cold vapor atomic absorption spectrometry. What happens is a reducing agent instead of oxidizing agent, a reducing agent is being utilized in this cold vapor atomic absorption spectrometry. By means of the reducing agent, the mercury is separated from its compound and then it is seen whether it is going to affect as a raw material or it is going to affect as a compound. This is being performed in laboratories on some tissue specimens, but those are not sufficient in showcasing the hazards because the hazards are very practical. The skin degradation is seen from naked eye, but the laboratory sample is just sample to showcase that it is going to act on a small amount of tissue. Hence, we need to advance in such method towards accuracy. So even if we have some method, we need to advance in the accuracy by seeing lot of chemical tests, not only this atomic absorption, but lot of chemical tests which are going to showcase what is going to affect our skin, what is going to affect our eyes, and how this can be minimized. The purpose is to minimize. Where we are living, it is going to be abundant of mercury, but we have to live on that particular layer of the soil. So how it can be minimized and it can be made a little safer place. It cannot be made as a worse safer place, it can be made as a little safer place. That is going to be analyzed. And for this we need to combine the chemical system of analysis to the communication system, so that the particular data available regarding the emissions or the composition which is going to emanate as gas through emissions is going to be monitored. So microwave assisted extraction methods are going to give accurate data. Microwave assisted extraction methods are going to give accurate data, and microwave related communication systems are going to give reliable transmission of such data. So microwave technology, whether it is for heat production, extraction, or it is going to be for communication, they have to be combined so that it can be analyzed. But this cannot be done in area where there are more people. It is also going to affect the people in turn. It is going to affect the people in some other terms. So children and pregnant women cannot be exposed to microwave radiation. So we have got lot many changes. So these particular study or a practical lifetime study can be done only in isolated places of such emissions. So isolated places for study of emissions have to be created for this purpose. So we have the microwave assisted extraction. If you see why it is being used, because people who consumed some seafoods in poverty are abundant in the world than people who consume healthy foods. If you see, people consume fishes are found mostly in all the places of the world rather than people eating vegetables. Fishes are creatures that have got blood which are colored. The blood of fish are colored, and they have the affinity to absorb mercury than human being. Human being skin is protected, and the skin protects the internal layer of tissues. The tissues protect the internal layer of blood vessels. Blood vessels protect the blood, but it is not so in terms of fishes. Fishes have the affinity to absorb this mercury, and then almost all fish eaters will have mercury content in them, due to which they lose their eye pigmentation over the years. If a person is a fish eater, he is going to radiate. The eye is going to radiate either bacteria or its own particle. The eye is going to be desiccated and it will keep on radiating. One goes before the radiometer, or it is going to or if one appears before infrared spectroscopy, then the infrared spectroscopy can see the radiation from the eyes of a fish eater than from the eyes of the vegetable eater or a person who avoids fish. So the radiating eyes are going to cause problem for persons in poverty who may feed on fishes. This is very evident fact, but it is ignored by almost all the countries because the population is one such. So majority we have fish eaters. Still we have to consider this particular effect of mercury. Either we have to suppress the consumption of fish, or we have to suppress the contamination of mercury. If both are not possible, then the particular world or particular area will be full of diseased persons radiating from their eyes or emanating bacteria and viruses from the eyes, and it will lead to a lot of contagious diseases than sexually transmitted disease. STDs once they were said that they will not affect unless and until there is a physical contact, but it is not so. It will still affect the persons due to this radiation contact. The bacteria or virus emanated from the eyes as desiccated particles may be absorbed by the persons who are unaffected earlier, and this the virus or bacteria may go into the eyes of the person, and in turn it may cause immunity concern to the liver. The liver is going to digest almost all particles of the human body, not the stomach. So liver may get immunity concerns. Over the years the liver may damage. This is what is happening due to metal toxicity. So we need to have lot many data collection from various sources of people, various sources, a different variety of people, uh, different land masses, and different biome where different animals are being exposed to certain toxic radiations or certain good radiations also. We need to collect so that we can compare what happens to the human body as an organism when it is exposed to such toxic material. So we have the pH. One another subject is a pH acidity, the rate of acidity of the soil, which can indirectly give there is some metal composition or some metal toxicity, but it cannot give us the exact uh, picture whether the health is going to be affected or not, because the ocean pH will be high because it has got salt in it. Obviously it is going to give us fact that the pH is going to affect us. It is acidic, so the ocean water is acidic, it is going to affect us. But it is not so. A dip in ocean water may also clean our body. That is also possible. So with pH there is no direct way to determine that the toxicity is going to affect us, and a person cannot drink salt water in his lifetime forever. It is very difficult to live on salt water. So for these reasons, the rating of the chemical substances in the soil along with the communication um, then is very essential in protecting our lives. We can see the traffic burst is mainly targeted to the transponder. When I say transponder, it is not the satellite transponder which is miles above Earth. The transponder is for the sensor transmission wireless node which is placed on Earth. Then from the transponder it is going to be beamed to a particular station. From the station, the particular data what is being actually rated can be beamed to the satellite, so that the experts sitting on other parts of the world having similar emissions, and if they have got solutions, can suggest measures to contain such particular toxicity in a particular region. So the memorandum of understanding between two regions of the world with a similar exposure to toxicity can benefit uh, both in a mutual manner, and this is very essential for letting down the power of mercury on human being. If we allow the power of mercury to subjugate human being, then human being will become a slave to whatever changes mercury may make in the human body. Mercury can be temperature sensitive, mercury can be viral sensitive, it can be sensitive to viruses, it may change its color. Mercury is sensitive to vibrations. Mercury is also sensitive to surfaces. We have surface tension. Mercury is sensitive to surfaces also. So all these changes will happen to human body if we allow the power of mercury to dominate our human beings. So this particular electronic transmission systems combined with SDUs, satellite delayed units, along with the chemo laboratory tests data collection is very responsible in determining how the exposure to emissions can be contained on Earth for the regions we live on. It is not a general message to the whole world, but where we are living, needs so many data which have to be analyzed such that our life is being enhanced against toxic substances. We cannot avoid toxic substance on earth because we are minuscule and the earth is major part. So one minuscule cannot fight against a major part. This fact is understood, but it is being denied by persons due to ignorance. So this ignorance have to be avoided. For this purpose, the congregation of two technologies dependent on microwave radiations, microwave technologies, microwave beaming is very important in containing the emissions and containing the toxicity by collection of data from such places. And thank you for listening. We will go in depth in further sessions related to technology as well as chemical substances. Thank you.